We live in a time when innovation and creativity are the path to autonomy, success, and unlimited potential. But our education system is trapped in the industrial age. We are still being fed the story that job security equals freedom. For many of us, that just isn't good enough. Every week, I'm bringing you the stories and experiences of entrepreneurs who don't accept the narrative that there is only one path to success. Their entrepreneurial journey is allowing them the freedom to prioritize both their businesses and their families. They are intentionally building a legacy to lead their family into a new era of innovation and growth. This is Our Modern Heritage Legacy Secrets, and I'm your host, Jody Chafee. Alrighty, welcome to the show. I want to welcome to the show today, Cody Jefferson, and Cody is recognized as one of the country's leading voices in personal development and entrepreneurial coaching by Entrepreneur, USA Today, and other major publications. Cody leads over 15,000 men and women daily into living the best version of their lives through one-on-one group coaching, and regularly shares the stage with influencers like Lewis Howes, Tom Bilyeu, Bilyeu, Dan Clark, Andy Frisella, Billie Jean, and many others. Welcome so much, Cody. I'm so glad to have you.
Listen, I'm honored to be here.
I'm honored.
Excited.
Like that list of people, I've been following those people for so long. It's great to connect with you and know that this is a great arena to be in, and it's great to be able to connect with our influencers and people who are inspiring. You inspire me, and I know that you're going to inspire so many people as you through your work. So thank you for being here.
Listen, the feeling's mutual. It really is an honor to be able to create this conversation and add any bit of value that I can and that you can and we can, that we create together to your audience and listeners.
So tell us a little bit more about your business. Just give us like an overview. What do you do? A little bit more.
Sure. I like to say that I partner with impact-driven entrepreneurs and influencers, right, to keep them from sacrificing their soul on the altar of their success. Because, if you think about having four pillars of life, right? So you think of a table and we have four legs, we call it four pillars: head, heart, health, and habits. Typically, we're really good at balancing like 1, 2, 3, but we have that fourth one, or we have that third and fourth one that get off kilter. Right. And so everything feels chaotic. And so what I do is I help create balance and clarity and sustainability to the success that we say that we want in this life.
That's incredible. I love those four pillars. That's so awesome. I think you're right that we try to balance all those four things. And so that's great that you are helping people figure out how to keep all those things in alignment. And for myself and my entrepreneurial journey and life journey, it's really been, that's so true. Like I want to, in my intelligence, intellectually, emotionally, physically, all those things that are so crucial to just stability in life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I found that, again, most people are great at balancing a couple. So maybe we're really great in business and we have no problem turning the business side up. Like I can always work more hours. Like I can always be landing more. I can always be doing more, but then we are completely absent with our families, right? Like we have all the best intentions in the world, but that date night keeps going from day to week to month. We want to be at more kids' events, but yet like when we're there, we're not present. We're constantly scrolling, constantly checking the phone, because we equate, like we justify it by, well, we're providing, we're doing what we said that we would do, right? Or we're really great at building our body, but our bank account is busted, right? Or we're good at everything else. Like we can show up for people, we can put on the show, we can be present for our families, but inside our mind, we're just telling ourselves stories that are just simply untrue.
Isn't that depressing? It's so sad that I can totally relate to that.
Yeah.
And that's awesome that that's amazing. Thank you. That's really cool. I'm so grateful that you are out there and doing this work. That's awesome. So, when you started out your business, what was it that inspired you? Why did you feel like you needed to get into this work?
Yeah. So I was a pastor for 13 years. I was in occupational ministry. So student ministry, worship ministry, executive pastoring, small group. I mean, I've done the gamut: conferences, traveled, speaking, doing the thing, playing the part. I loved it. It was an amazing season of my life. I loved walking alongside the people that I did and the community that I did, the communities that we grew. but it led to a lot of dissonance. There were a lot of things happening in my life behind the scenes. I was a guy who was a quintessential yes man. I was consistently saying yes to everything because like my job was God, and like God is first. So job has to be first and family needs to come first, but family has to be second. So it creates all of this dissonance.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm just trying to perform and prove and perform and prove and perform and prove, because then maybe I'll feel like I'm good enough to have this position. Right. And man, by the end of it, there was just a lot of things that came crashing down. I went through a divorce. I lost, like completely unrelated, like 8 family members and friends to unrelated tragedies and deaths, and continuing to show up as the person in charge, continuing to put on the show, right? It wasn't that it was inauthentic. It was just all I knew.
Right.
And it all came crashing down. Was hospitalized. I went septic. My body just said no more. And I think I almost died.
Wow.
106 fever, hormonal shutdown, adrenal fatigue, and thyroid scramble. And I can remember after being unconscious for 3 days, waking up 20 pounds lighter, kind of walking myself into that bathroom, looking at a gaunt version of myself and just saying like, nobody's coming to save you. Like what needs to, so the question that I ask myself every day now is, what needs to die in you to become the man that you said that you'd be? It's funny, Alex over in the community we were talking about just posted that quote this morning, but it's something I ask myself. And so I recognized that I couldn't continue showing up in this capacity. And so I looked for something, some sort of program that would help me through what I was walking through. And there were some, but they were a little bit militant for me. Like I didn't need somebody yelling at me. That's not what I needed. And so that's where Embrace the Line was born. I just figured I would create it. So I looked at my life. It looked at the ways in which I wasn't taking ownership, the ways in which I was operating as a victim, the ways in which I wasn't showing up as powerfully and giving my power away to other people. And, you know, the thing about pain is I had experienced so much and I'd carried so much for others. But if we don't transform that pain, we transmit it. So for me, it was, I'm going to stop transmitting the pain. And so created the program and started walking alongside men who were just in the midst of transition, whether that be divorce or stepping out of ministry, stepping into different careers, grew that community to about 4,500 and stepped out of ministry, right? Nothing bad. It was just, this was taking off. And I recognized this is the call on my life. Like I had to step away from everything I knew, all of the identity I'd known. Like I had only known my adult life as a husband and as a pastor. And I had to remove both of those titles so that I could step into the call that really is on my life. And for so many of your listeners, like you're in this internal struggle of, this is everything I've ever known. And I feel like this is what I'm called to, but there's so much fear and anxiety of what if it doesn't work? What if I'm not enough? And the reality is like, you are enough. You've always been enough. There will never be a time that you aren't enough, but you need to ask yourself the question, what needs to die in me to become the person that I said that I wanted to be, the me that I'm created to be?
Yeah, I love that. And I love what you said about that, transforming that energy rather than transmitting it. I think that that is so important. Like that idea, because I see that, like, so a little bit, just a hint into my story, my husband has gone through that, and he and I both, where we're like, we didn't have an outlet for where this energy needs to go. And so then it just explodes, right?
Yeah.
And it becomes unhealthy behaviors, or it becomes self-destructive behaviors and things
Right.
like that. And so that's incredible that you were able to recognize that and use that energy to, like you said, you use it to transform your life rather than just letting it explode or internalizing it and becoming destructive.
Sure.
And so that's inspiring. Is that basically what you mean when you say transform versus the transmit?
Yeah. Well, because we all have darkness inside of us, and so many of us try to mask it. We try to cover it up. We try to act like it doesn't exist, but we have to embrace it for what it is, right? Like, because we can't have the light without the dark, and we have to honor that, but we have to channel it in really useful ways. The problem is we've just been taught to either bury it, which is incredibly unuseful and unhealthy, which leads to dis-ease and discomfort, right? And dysregulated emotions. But it doesn't have to be that way. So we have to find useful ways to to transform the pain into something useful. The brain doesn't care. The brain doesn't care whether you're happy or sad, whether you're skinny or overweight, doesn't care whether you're like rich, whether you have no money, whether you're married, divorced. It doesn't care. All it cares about is patterns. All it cares about is doing the exact same thing in the least amount of energy possible, because it's busy like listening to this podcast right now, trying to figure out whether what I'm saying is true or not. Like you're trying to assume for yourself, you're sitting up right now, you're breathing, you're pumping blood, you're doing all these things. Your brain doesn't want to do anything else. So for you to say, I want to pivot and I want to do something different with my life, I want to do something different with my daily habits, your brain's just going to say, no. Right. So we find ourselves in these cyclical patterns of unhealth, not because we want to. And that's where a lot of people get disconnected. It's like, I do the things that I don't want to do. I know what I'm supposed to. Well, sure. Yeah. Your brain doesn't want you to. So what I do is I come alongside and I help you, one, decide, get the clarity on what it is that you actually want. And then, okay, we have this cycle, this loop of thoughts, feelings, and actions. Let's create the actions, the habits that align with your head, your heart, and your health, so that you can start doing the things that will lead you to feeling a certain way, which leads you to thinking a different way, which lead to different outcomes in your life.
So basically your brain wants the path of least resistance, really.
Always.
But you have to really enact and enable yourself to make those changes and be
It's
intentional and be deliberate.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why the question, what needs to die in me to become the person I said I would be, is so impactful, because it's all about self-awareness and personal ownership, right? In order to have what you've never had, we've heard it said, you've got to do what you've never done, right? But that includes like you being very, very aware of why you do the things that you do and the results of the things that you do, and making a very, very conscious effort to put new patterns in place to stop recreating those results that you keep getting.
That's awesome. That's great. That's really something that with my message around families and the culture that we want to create inside of our families, a lot of times it does create a shift, a pattern interrupt, to make sure that what we're doing is really what we really want, rather than just always going with what's the default mode or what's casual and comfortable.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to make those deliberate changes. And so that's awesome that's like the point of your coaching. That's what you're what you're working on and helping people to do is create that intentionality. And I love that your story is about that as well, that because you recognize that you needed a change, you needed a transformation in order to align your head, heart, and health with healthy habits. And I'm sorry that you had to go through those difficulties, but it's almost like because we go through the hardship and the challenge, those are the things that really inspire the change. And in a lot of ways, it's like you said, you need the light and the dark. And it's
Yeah.
almost like because you experience the dark, you seek after the light. And so it's
Yeah.
awesome at the same time that that you are able to take your story and turn it around to something that's so beautiful and so inspiring. So that's awesome. But so now I want to ask you, what was it that about this change that you made, when you talked about your family and being a dad or a husband, and so it's like, what was it about this change that was inspired by your family? And, what changes have you seen in your family because of this change and this shift
Yeah.
in your
Well, I can say
behavior?
I'm happily remarried now. I have an amazing wife who has brought her two daughters into the mix, and now we have 3 kids total. And the shift internally obviously leads to the manifestation of the desires of your heart externally, right? And so it allows me to not just say that I am this way, but to actually act it out. Now, one of the hard parts about the online space and the online community is that it can create a lot of dissonance between who you try to show up on or show up as online and who you are behind the scenes.
Mhm.
So for me, like the real litmus test is if I were to go talk to your spouse, right? If I were to go talk to your kids, would they say the same things about you that you say about yourself online? So for me, it's creating habits and creating um, safety nets and what my wife would call non-negotiables to safe proof our not only our marriage but our family time, so that we can show what we're doing, right, as much as we say we're doing it.
That's awesome. So this really, the things that you're learning is really you're implementing it into your own family, basically, is what you're saying.
Oh,
the things that you're creating.
yeah, because if not, there would be a whole lot of cognitive
Right.
dissonance in between what
Absolutely.
I say and who I am. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. And in the process of making these changes, how has your family, you were, so when I decided that I wanted to start a business,
Mhm.
and I saw that the impact would affect my children in a positive way, because they see me creating, transforming this energy, and so how have you seen that affecting your wife and your children as you create this business and make this impact? Have they been how have they been impacted from your growth?
Yeah. Well, one, they see it in real time. And two, it's not always as squeaky clean as we like to make it seem on podcasts. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is a challenge every day, and they get to see that challenge. They get to see, when so we have non-negotiables where I shut it down at, between 5 and 6 p.m. Today it's 5 because I've got a date night with my wife tonight to go see Goo Goo Dolls. But shut it down, right? And then no phone on the weekends, and like no business on the weekends. And so they get to see that in real time, that dad is doing what he said he's going to do. He's putting the work aside. But then they also get to see the flip side where, I mean, growth is uncomfortable regardless of where you are in your journey. And so they get to see the uncomfortable growth that I go through, the uncomfortable growth that my wife and I go through she's my business partner. And so we're the crazy couple that we do this together. And so as she is finishing up her book and coaching her own clients, and I am doing my thing and traveling and speaking and leading, we get to grow together in real time. But then also, recognizing there are boundaries, right? So every morning I make breakfast for my kids. Like we spend every meal together. Our kids are homeschooled. So there's no speaking engagement that I will take now that my family can't come with me. Right? Like
Yeah.
what's the point of me getting to do all this and live out my dream if my family doesn't get to experience it with me? Like that's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
I love that.
yeah.
That's awesome. I love that that's that your family, because you're family oriented, it's informing a lot of your decisions too. And that's really interesting in that regard too, that, I'm sure someone like you, so inspiring, you maybe get invited to some things where you're like, there's a lot of, not questionable, but language, as far as language goes and things like that, there's a lot of people in the entrepreneurial arena that feel like using strong language is supposed to be like inspiring. And that would be like, well, sorry, I can't go to that. My kids are more important
Oh,
to me than,
no.
than
So there are definitely events that I say no to. And
Mhm.
it typically is just more of a scheduling issue. In
Mhm.
terms of like language or anything else, listen, um, I'm probably, as somebody who was in ministry for a long time, like language has never really been a thing for me. You'll find that there are times on my platform that I'll use profanity when I think it's necessary. What I
Mhm.
try to teach my kids, and my wife would say the same thing, is like, there are moments where there are no other words, but typically there are other words.
Mhm.
But if you're going to use those words, use them in context and use them well.
Mhm.
Right? When we try to paint with profanity, and just for the sake of being edgy or confrontational or polarizing, we really limit our audience. Listen, when I first jumped into the coaching space, I tried to remove myself so far from ministry because it was all I was known as, that, man, I was lighting my feet up with F-bombs and middle fingers. Like it was crazy. Like my brand was throwing a middle finger up to all of your excuses. That's how I
Mhm.
pushed into the space.
Wow.
And recognizing, there are enough people yelling at people. There are enough people creating that kind of energy. As somebody who was a pastor for so long, like that feels more real to me.
Mhm.
But I needed to go through that evolutionary process. And for so many of your listeners, like, listen, you're not going to get it right 100% of the time. You're going to evolve. You're going to fall down. You're going to get back up. You're going to say things that you're going to shake your head about a year later. Right. Like I made the comment a year ago of like, when I was talking about fitness, because I'm a fairly in shape guy. If you don't have control over your body, what do you have control over? While having a 10-year-old with cerebral palsy and being
Wow.
autistic and having a severe seizure disorder, having a wife who now walks through life with 2 diagnosed autoimmune diseases.
Hmm.
And I had the gall to say, if you don't have control over your body, what a facepalm moment when those in my own home don't have control over their body. So you're going to mess up. You're going to flounder over your words a little bit. And so even with my kids, teaching them that, hey, like sometimes like you're going to say things that you don't mean. It's in how do we learn and how do we course correct?
Yeah, course correcting. I love that. That's a really good point to keep in mind, is that we're constantly growing and
Yeah.
changing and developing and becoming, that's part of this journey. It's so crucial. I love that you're able to be that example and allow your kids to see you growing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So in the conclusion of this portion of the interview, I like to ask, through your business, through your work, in life with your family, what is the legacy that you feel like you're developing, a legacy you'd like to leave with your family?
Oh, that's an amazing question. So the legacy, that I was the man that I said that I was, that I am the man that my son, in whatever way he chooses, right? Like that I have given him permission to be fully himself, and that I have given my girls full permission to be themselves. And I've shown them how to do that. And that my wife and I we have raised good, self-sufficient humans who care about other humans. And I want to be the legacy is that I am a man that my son aspires to be, and I am the man that my daughters aspire to marry.
Awesome. That's awesome. Thanks, Cody. I really appreciate you sharing that and sharing your thoughts and your journey and the inspiration of your family. Where can my audience get more of you and connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on Facebook. Just type in Cody Jefferson. You shoot me a message. Happy to message you back. You can find me on Instagram, Cody_Jefferson. And then if you, sounds so pretentious, if you go to CodyJefferson.com, you can find me there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Cool. Thank you so much for listening. But I have to tell you that this is just the beginning. There is more to this episode inside of my Facebook group. I hope that you'll go and request to join that community because it's awesome. There's more podcast content that's exclusive to the group. There's also giveaways, live Q&As, and you can come and ask questions and take part in this awesome community. So please come and request to join at facebook.com/groups/familyculture-strategies. You can also find my page on Facebook at facebook.com/familyculturepodcast. And I'm at Instagram in the same handle, Family Culture Podcast. I hope you'll come and follow me there and join in this movement to create an intentional family culture around being entrepreneurial and integrating and prioritizing your family as you grow your business. So come and join me there. I hope to see you there. You can also come find my website at ourmodernheritage.com. Thank you so much. And remember that if you want to change the world, go home and love your family.